Hey you guys, this is Tired Goth and you are reading Malware with me. So this episode is actually going to be about Morpheus. If you don't know what Morpheus is, I kind of also don't either. So we're going to get into this paper here and we're going to see what Morpheus is about. Apparently, I guess, concise description of this is Morpheus was a framework for, I guess, operating system functions or like operational system tasking specifically without a typified user interface. Um, Typified user interface, for those of you who are just tuning in, maybe don't know about tech, welcome, by the way. A typified user interface within the context of most computers is going to have an operating system that opens up on the kernel layer and sort of unfolds itself into things that allow you to run applications. And the other side of this is actually a performative kind of framework that allows you to do the same thing without an operating system. Or at the very least, the operating system kind of works on the lowest layers of functionality. So it's not really anything like picturesque. It's not anything super graphic or graphical, I should say. It's stuff that works a lot more with text and simple relays for information. So what this actually says here, according to the Morpheus vulnerability tolerant secure architecture based on ensembles of moving targets and defenses with CHURN or churn. This is based in research through the University of Michigan. And we have a lot of really important people here. We have Mark Gallagher, we have Lauren Bernacki, we have Shivo Chen, we have Zelalem Birnahuawik, we have Salisavi Fered Yidbarek, we have Misikar. If I'm mispronouncing your names and you're seeing this, I'm so sorry. I'm doing my best here. But Misikar Tades Aga, we have Austin Harris, Ziching Chu, Baris Kasike, Valeria Bertaco, Sharad Malik, Mohit Tiwari, and Todd Austin. So these contributors took part in what I understood to be like a test of some kind, and we're going to see like how all of this came through. So the abstract states in the paper, attacks often succeed by abusing the gap between program and machine level semantics. Totally different word, semantics. For example, by locating a sensitive pointer, exploiting a bug to overwrite the sensitive data, and hijacking the victim program's execution. So basically, this is describing what typical attacks usually do on an operating system that is typified as discussed. So you're going to have attacks that go for the execution layer, which is actually a little higher than like your average code kind of stuff, but a little lower than the graphical user interface. It's like right there in the middle. If there are 7 layers, for example, you have like layer 5 and layer 6 that are in the executionary kind of state there. And then everything else from there is actually like just interoperating at those layers to make sure that whatever else is happening whatever else is happening is like, functioning properly. So the attacks don't allow things to function properly. The attacks come in sideways, trying to make themselves like, apparent or necessary to the machine when they're not. So that's basically how that works. And in this work, we take secure system design on the offensive by continuously obfuscating information that attackers need, but normal programs do not use. So, such as representation of code and pointers or the exact location of code and data. So it's actually working within the parameters set on an operating system to assure that like any presentation there is actually any presentation there is actually just going to be like kerfuffled, like totally messed up. Things are going to be like underspoken, under-argued, to the extent where like a normal function will have arguments set against its own normal functions, and it'll start feeding that information to third parties and so on and so forth. So Morpheus combines two powerful protections in this hardware architecture: ensembles of moving defenses and churn. Ensembles of moving target defenses randomize key program values, relocating pointers, and encrypting code and pointers, meaning that the locations that actually pick up this information are encrypted, and then they're re-encrypted each time they're used. So every single time something is passed to those pointers, it's not the same information that was present before, to make sure that that information was able to be recollected from another source. So let's say we have like point A and point B, right? Point A and point B are both relaying to point C. So point A and point B and point C all have a relay going on. What Morpheus as an architecture allows this to do is point A will relay to point C, for example, and that transaction will be encrypted. Point A will have one encryption, which will lock in with point C, and that will be encrypted. If point B gets infected with something and attempts to decrypt point C or point A, the encryption that it would be working on to decrypt it would not exist by the time it got to it. The node services, or I should say the point-to-point connections, however they are so named, don't actually keep the same encryption. They re-encrypt constantly. And this project, to my understanding, was actually something set in place to attempt to decrypt the encrypted values in time to snatch whatever information was relayed to them. Now, considering that there are 3 separate points as well, this is 3 and then also 6 separate presumed encryption points, because we have the 2 that are talking to each other. We have the one that also could want to talk to point C, which is B. This was the only one that hasn't interacted yet. B and C also have their respective normal, connection, point to point. So B and C, in the case that they wanted to speak the way that A and C communicated earlier, they would be able to do that. And their points would also be encrypted. C's would be re-encrypted to suit B's, since since A's transaction was over with A and C. And then C would have its own re-encryption. So the Boolean encryption, if you wanted to like quantify them all together, wouldn't actually be 6, it would be closer to 7 for that specific instance, where if B wanted to talk with C the way that A and C had previously communicated, B would have one set of encryption to lock in with C, which would be a different type of encryption than what A and C had both used. Meaning that B and C would then have encrypted communication, and then if anything wanted to infect the communications between B and C, the encryption roll again would re-roll for both of those things, meaning that then you would have 4 separate sets of encryption, 2 separate sets of encryption for C, and then a presumed extra one for each in the case that another point of contact tried to contact any of them. So the number goes from 7 then to 9 different encryption rolls for the same process if there was an invasive force trying to contact any which of those at the same time, or both of them at the same time. This is something that people who have been testing for encryption, I guess, verity really is the word for it, have been trying to break, and they can't. They haven't been able to, but we'll get into this now in this paper. So it says here that since they randomize the relocating pointers and encryption and code, force attackers to extensively probe the system prior to an attack, meaning that in order to actually gain any type of surface information to then verify that an attack can proceed, there would have to be there would have to be consistent and very constant probing to decrypt, or even get close to an idea of how to decrypt any of those systems. Now, being exposed to those types of probes is very jarring if you're not expecting that to happen. If you are not anticipating that someone is probing your machine, it is going to seem like an actual tech nightmare. You're going to have your systems disabled, your your device functions simply will just break down, stop working. Like the probes will actually overload whatever server carriage you already have going on and further break it to the extent where if it wanted to pick back up and regenerate from a system stop or a system restart position, it wouldn't be able to. You would actually have so many arguments going on to the stasis of programs that were already running, and then things that wanted to pick up running with different encryption modules and different settings and functions all together, trying to do this and breaking everything in the process. So these functions don't actually pick up the way that they're meant to. Their intention is to function as was pre-programmed out of box as a device that's healthy, right? And then what happens is the information that's probed in is something that interjects everything and then creates major interruptions for everything else that's going on. But with Morpheus, because of the encryption type, the encryption settings, and the encryption timer specifically, which I had read about in other instances, but not within a practice that was as effective until I just read about Morpheus briefly as like a synopsis here. Apparently, Morpheus has the ability to challenge the state of, I guess you could say, probe success, due to the fact that Morpheus re-encrypts so quickly on a node timer where any of that information would be relevant to the next event that it would not actually retain any of that. It wouldn't leave any type of grace for an attacker to pick up and say, okay, I have this information now. There's no room for that. There's no time for that. And what makes this so interesting to me is those timers usually last only approximately 14 seconds. So the fraction of time that this is using is actually apparently able to move quickly enough to suit something outside of a user interface and work with things that resemble more so machine code or something that is lower layer and therefore requires far less time to transfer, and the transfer speeds obviously would be accommodated within a 2.0 gigahertz transfer as it is, because typically that's the type of machine you're working with anyway. If you're working with anything that's transferring data back and forth, you're likely working within a 1.7 to a 2.8 range, even for a portable machine or something that is, not extensive in its clockwork, as it were, its overclock abilities or anything like that. So it's just really interesting to see how this paper is not only describing the hardware functions just by discussing what's going on with them, but it's also talking about how the timing of the retention of information is actually what makes or breaks a successful attack for an attacker. Because an attacker will always go for an attack that is quick, brief, and doesn't require extensive energy to do this. However, if they can't place a time frame on what their own attack would look like because they don't have one, and then furthering this, they also don't understand the means, method, or interlocking connections of the encryption. This is also something that would gravely perplex an attacker, making it an excellent blue team sort of defense to discuss, to annotate here. So to go on with the paper, we barely made it out of the abstract, by the way. Forgive my forehead vein. I'm so excited. So, oh gosh. Yeah. To ensure the attack probes fail, the architecture incorporates churn to transparently re-randomize program values underneath the running system. This is calling to the encryption of the system processes as well, meaning that if anything on a server layer or a server level approach would attempt to check what the events are here in any of the system processes, these would also be encrypted to the point of like non-value. Which I, as a person who understands defense, like that's just cold as ice. That's really mean. But I love it because like there are attackers who They would be like, well, what is this? Where is this going? It's not going anywhere. That's the point. You hit a dead end the moment you attacked something that re-rolled its encryption so quickly. So it's endlessly entertaining for me specifically, but that's my sense of humor. Don't mind me. Um, so it says here with frequent churn, which is the re-encryption, re-rolling, reassessment, of the system process's current state. The systems quickly become impractically difficult to penetrate. So it's like machine celibacy. There's like no entry point, no ability for an attacker to get an advantage there. So I'm going to leave you actually with this first paragraph because I feel like the rest of this paper, which is only 16 pages, is actually going to be super entertaining for you, even if you're not into tech. So I'm just going to leave you with this. And I hope you enjoyed everything that we spoke about today. I'm Tired Goth. If you're new tuning into my channel, welcome. I love that you're here. I'm so happy that you're here. And if you aren't new, if you've been tuning in for a while, I just want to thank you for sticking around because it means everything to me. I'm so grateful for you. And I'm super like happy to be entertaining you today. So this is me signing off. If you like what I do, don't forget to hit that like button on the way out of the show. Definitely hit up my merch store if you're interested in seeing the memes that I have posted on t-shirts, very shamelessly. Yes, me, I did that. I have designed a whole bunch of merch. A lot of them are actually like memes from my blog and from like threat hunting, like active threat hunting that I did on websites where I would take down porn bots and just like troll people who were not up to any good, and the results that obviously came from that. There are some actual like hash cracking memes in there if you caught that. If you do not know what those look like, I'm not going to be the one to tell you, but if you do, definitely buy that shirt, that sticker, that magnet, anything. If you would be entertained by that and you would wear that with grace for my brand, then I would be honored to have you wearing my stuff. And with that, I leave you. If you are interested in booking me for classes, I do private tutorials, private services related to tech modification. I do tech repairs. I also do tech tutoring sessions. So let me know if you're interested in anything that I'm doing currently. I have both group sessions. You can go with your friends if you're uncomfortable, you don't know like what you're getting into, you feel better with your friends around. We can do group sessions, and they are remote, they are online, and you would just, pay the fee that you arranged. Keep me in the loop, keep me filled in what it is you need. I will accommodate you. And I also have paid per minute classes. If you wouldn't like to book solid blocks where I teach you consecutively for X amount of hours, then it's usually like 3 like solid hours with breaks. So if you don't feel like that is your vibe, maybe you can't squeeze that into your schedule, I do have remote paid per minute classes as well. You can literally schedule like a half hour each day out of the week and be like, can I book you for this day, this day, this day, at this time, this time, this time? They don't have to be the same time. They don't have to be the same day. I am flexible, and I am flexible for you and your schedule because I know how it is. So just, like I said, keep me filled in what it is that you'd like to do. I would be happy to have you in my classes. I teach all ages. Just let me know ahead of time what the age group you're booking for is, so I have my documents, my presentations prepared. I have them separate for each age group. Someone who is 18 to 70 years old is not going to be getting the same teaching, curriculum that someone who is in middle school or grade school is going to be getting. Obviously, there is going to be a transition there, okay? So I'm just letting you know. I'm amazed that I had to say that for some people, but I'm sure they want to make sure they know what is in the class, and that's a-okay with me. So without further ado, I'm going to end this particular episode of the Malware Show. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm so grateful for you all, and thanks for your support. I'll catch you guys later. Don't forget to check out the newest Patreon drop. There's a book bundle there. It's an MP3 and a PDF version of Privacy Actually, edition 1B, which is the second release. As you know, the first edition is now no longer being released. It is a collectible now. If you got a copy of the book, if you have a hard copy of the book, that is yours. It might be autographed by me, but there are no more paperback editions and hardly any circulating copies of edition 1 of Privacy Actually. It's edition 1B now. So I hope you enjoy it. If you would like to buy it, it's on sale for $7.30 on Patreon. You can just do an instant purchase. If you're on iOS, Patreon may charge you an additional iOS fee, but that is exclusive and solely on Patreon. So if you'd like to buy it for a less pricey amount, you can actually like book the purchase through Cash App Business by going to usrbin. It's my handle on Cash App Business, and it should say no topic publication and press, and that's how you'll know it's me. You can include your order in the payment note with your email address, even if you mess up the payment note, as long as you have the email address in there. I will be able to message you back and be like, hey, by the way, what was that? Let me finish your order with you and we'll get you all set to go. So again, thanks so much. I'll catch you guys later. Love you guys. Bye.